I'll just wait for that to come up, and then we'll make a start. So welcome everyone to my, oh sorry, I'll just turn the sound down because it's going to be really distracting. There we go. So welcome everyone to my dining room, your living room, your loft, wherever you happen to be. It's great to see you, and welcome to Rise and Design. My name's Terry McStay. Can I just have a quick show of hands? Yeah, first of all, could I ask you, if you wouldn't mind, to put your cameras on, please, because we love to see your happy smiling faces. And, you know, if you haven't brushed your hair or put your teeth in, we don't mind, you know, we're all in this together. And also, if you wouldn't mind making sure that the name on, as mine is there, is your actual name, just because, you know, we don't have badges and things anymore. So that's how people can figure out who you are. And, you know, somebody might be chatting with you in one of the breakout rooms and want to connect with you afterwards. So if your name's there, that would really help. So can we have a quick show of hands? Can I just ask who's here for the first time at the, I'm sorry, I'm just going to mute everyone first, because there we go. Right, I'll start again. Quick show of hands, who's here for the first time at the Rise and Design event? Just give us a quick wave. There's a few of you. Well, a very special welcome to you. It's great to see you. I'm glad you could make it here this morning. Have your fences all survived? Are they all ready for Storm Eunice, who's on our way at the weekend? Mine's, I'm not going to say what mine looks like because it's not good, but there you go. So welcome to Applications of Immersive Tech. It's actually this event is part of a series that we're doing in support of an activity the LEP started towards the end of last year. So they've established, or they've asked people who want to establish what they've called innovation development partnerships, which are focusing on different sectors or technology areas, one of which is immersive tech. And we, as in Design Network North, are supporting that through what we've called the Design Support Alliance. So helping each of those clusters to embed design and use design more effectively in what they're doing. And one of the ways that we're doing that is we've kind of co-opted or offered these monthly Rise and Design events to each of those sector areas to tell us all about what they're doing and what's going on, and invite some companies along who are working in that field. So the first of those is this one, Applications of Immersive Tech. So there is quite a strong, as we know, quite a very strong network cluster community of immersive tech businesses in the Northeast, and so we're delighted to be able to showcase some of that this morning. But just for those of you who haven't been to one of these events before, this is what we've been doing the second Friday of every month for the last 13 years, which never stops being scary every time I say it, but it is that long. And the reason is that we believe that great design can improve any product, service, or business. And our role as Design Network North, which you are now all part of, whether you like it or not, is to kind of make that a reality. So I'm just going to put myself on Spotlight so you can see me slides a little bit better. There we go. The ultimate aim of increasing the contribution that design makes to the economy. That's what we're all about. And these events are part of that journey in a way. So over those last 13 years, we've had over 6,000 people who've come along from, I can't see that number actually because the screens are there, from nearly 3,000 different businesses. We've had 400 odd speakers who've very graciously come along and shared their knowledge, their stories, their expertise. Sadly, that number of bacon sandwiches hasn't gone up for nearly 2 years. But as I said earlier, I'm hoping to have some news on that front later. So we may not have to suffer the virtual bacon sandwiches that Sean was describing, which I'm sure would be amazing, but not quite as good as the real thing. But these events are a really good way to meet new people, to learn new things, to share ideas, to share problems, issues, or just your business card. But really, most importantly, we hope that you take something away today, that you learn something, you meet someone that really makes a difference in your business. So this is what we've got for you this morning. So we've got some people who are going to share some amazing stuff, blow your minds just a tiny bit. And then I'm just going to mute someone. There we go. And then we've got, I'll just do an update on some things that are going on, but there's lots of time for networking as well, which is a big part of what these sessions are about. And you can network almost as effectively on Zoom as you can in real life. So I would encourage you to kind of, get stuck in and try and meet as many new people as you can. So this morning, I'm delighted that we'll have Sean from XR Therapeutics telling us about some of the amazing work that they're doing. And I've spelled his name wrong. I do apologize. Zaid Alwan from Northumberland University, who is equally doing some amazing stuff in the construction world. And then we have Tom from Cerberus Nuclear, who are working in the field of nuclear safety and using immersive tech in quite an amazing way to help people understand what that is all about. So that's what we've got for you this morning. But I'm now delighted to welcome. I've changed the order slightly from the earlier slides, so I'm very delighted to welcome Zaid Alwan from Northumberland University, who, when we were discussing this, realised that we had both worked in the old RTC North building 20 odd years ago, when he was part of an organisation that was based there. So we had a little bit of reminiscing about the various characters that used to work there. But enough about that. I'm just going to find Zaid on the screen so I can hand over to him. There we go.
Okay.
So welcome, Zaid. Can I just hand over to you and you can share your screen and stuff?
Yeah. Sorry, we were just discussing this earlier. I mainly use Teams, and so it's kind of. I just want to see if this is right. Share the screen.
There we go. We can see that. Okay.
Okay, so you can see the presentation?
We can. Yeah, that looks fine.
Okay.
Right, great. Over to you.
Yes. So good morning, everyone. This is the normal academic life. I'm on a kind of between site visits with students, so that's why I opted to do this earlier. So today I'm just going to give you. Is the audio okay? Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so today I'm going to give you a brief overview, because I don't, I'm not your kind of what you think of a stereotypical academic who just kind of teaches. My whole area is actually engaging with research and engaging with companies, and we at Northumberland University, we believe we should be kind of pushing forward areas, particularly in the boundaries, especially in the area of kind of low carbon design and innovation and so on. So today I'm going to talk about a project that I won funding for from the Centre for Digital Build Britain, which is part of Innovate and part of Cambridge University and co-funded by Northumberland University. And it comes really from my background in kind of energy modelling and low carbon design and so on. So yeah, that's my name. I don't use the name doctor unless I'm applying for a loan or adding something to my mortgage. Yeah, so just to give you a bit of kind of background about what this is, it's kind of the multidisciplinary research that was funded kind of 2 years ago, and we finished the work just prior to lockdown. The idea behind this is the construction industry is a bit behind in terms of digitalization, and a lot of the funding that's available now is increasingly how to make kind of the construction sector much more digital, which looks at kind of digital coordination and modeling and so on. So that's really where the projects were funded in Edinburgh, Newcastle, Loughborough, and various others, but only 10 were selected for this funding. So the idea is for me was to develop a tool at the end, and as I will go further on through the presentation, the tool won an award, and I was presenting it at COP26 a couple of months back. Okay, I'll just give you a second to look at this slide from the 1970s. So you can see really how the world has really changed. This is a subsidiary, I think it was Humble, it's a subsidiary of Esso or Shell, and it was talking about energy and carbon, and it was, you can actually recreate so much energy, enough to melt, an iceberg almost. So the world really has kind of changed a great deal between now and then. It was just a huge kind of difference. It's almost like 360-degree turn. However, now we can't do anything like this. We actually have to save these icebergs from melting. So this is really the kind of catch behind why I'm doing it. So buildings generate 40% of energy, use 20% of greenhouse gases, enormous amount of resources. Today, I'll be talking about two things, which is called operational energy and embodied energy, and I'll explain what this is. So these are the areas that are funded, but again, it just shows you why this is such an important topic to address. So when we look at carbon, when we look at energy use in a building or an asset, it's important to, you might have come across this term, whole building life carbon. So we just look at really the operation. So our EPCs, when we buy a house, or we try and look at energy efficiency in terms of lighting or heating and cooling, so that all comes under the operation. But in terms of construction, development of product, end of life, it doesn't really follow within building regs. It's not a huge consideration apart from your FSC rated kind of wood that you buy, or certain things that have been through a rigorous supply chain. So it's very hard to take this as part of the overall process. So that's the kind of simple design, but looking at this at a more complex level, you can't really go and measure energy across an entire product. It's very time consuming and so on. So you have here different stages, and you have different stages of a kind of a building, a building or a construction. You've got your structure, superstructure, and until your finishes and so on. So you have to draw boundaries. At what level are you analyzing the carbon, or what value, at what level you're doing your kind of analysis? So you need to have a scope. So I think this is the kind of work that I was trying to do, is to actually define a boundary, because it's impossible to measure everything. As you all know, we have this now kind of written in law, is there is a zero carbon target for the UK and a zero carbon target for a lot of countries around the world. And the COP26 event was, highlighted this more than ever before. Okay, we didn't we had very limited targets at the end, but this is the idea. And whether this happens in the future or not, it looks like the trajectory is towards this. And another factor is really the increasing gas prices, which you're all experiencing. So there's another element of kind of fuel poverty and so on. So you've got your zero carbon operational measures and your embodied carbon. So these are the two aspects that are important. So what we need to do is sort of address both to do this effectively. There's no point having an ultra low carbon building when the construction sector still uses vast amounts of carbon for constructing the materials. So what did we do for this? You can go and buy off the shelf tools that tell you how much carbon is in your materials. You can go and do that, and it'll give you, you put in your materials and you get an output, and it doesn't really, at the end, you go, there you go, there's my assessment. But in reality, if I ask you, do you know what a kilowatt is, or do you know what a megawatt is? People don't really respond to that very well. Even with these gas prices, increasing gas prices, do you sit and work out your kilowatts? And you might know how much you pay per kilowatt, but in reality, it's numerical things. And I've spent a long periods of my time doing energy modeling, using things like MATLAB, or using IES or Energy Plus and so on. And in reality, it's a very specific field. And a client or a kind of a stakeholder wants to see things in a much more visual way. So you've got these are what you've got. You can have your early conceptual architectural design, your structural model, and your detailed model. And that's what happens in the world of building and construction and design specifically, is at what stage do we need to do this? So these are the different stages we tried to kind of look at and analyze. I believe in kind of visual things. This was one of the companies we worked with, and they were embarking on a sort of in the Sunderland area. They were embarking on a small scale development, and they were keen to look at the footprint, because they were focusing on reducing their energy in terms of their operational energy, but in terms of looking at the embodied carbon, we tried to sort of use that as case study. So very much applied research that we were trying to do. We're trying to do this. Again, this is a prototype that I'm presenting. So we sort of tried to analyze this and present it in a 3D domain. And that's really what was happening. We transferred largely, unless it's really big companies, people are still working in kind of a 2D domain. 3D domain is used a lot for visualization and so on, but in terms of energy analysis and so on, it's very much a 2D process. So these are the sort of stages in terms of the development of a building. And as you can see here, I've noticed sort of an architect that I know in the audience. So I'm not going to do this in terms of RIBA stages, but these are the areas that you should have the greatest influence on reducing your carbon very, very early in the design stage, because it's at this stage, it doesn't have to be a building, it could be a product, it could be a bridge, it could be a mobile phone, but at this early level is where you can influence change, because you can substitute materials. If you go down here, well, there's not really much you can do apart from saying, well, this is my footprint. So again, a focus on the early design stages. Professional bodies are addressing this. RICS, Royal Institute of Child Surveyors, the RIBA is trying to address this. This is a very, very good active organization in London, the London Energy Transformation Initiative, driven by very young engineers and architects who are saying, these building regs are not suitable if we are going to embark on a zero carbon journey. This is what you need to do, and have very, very nice visual metrics, really, really interesting to look at. So this actually aspect requires really skilled personnel. It's a complex process to handle. You either get, so what I'm presenting today is looking at visualization of energy, and normally people who do visualization have an IT background or an architectural background, and people who do maybe energy modeling are from a different background. So we try to mix the two together. We try to sort of make it as kind of cross-disciplinary as possible. And also requires a large amount of data, and susceptible to kind of leaving out important information if you do this manually. You can do it manually. Again, this is not my work, but something that's been done by others. It's building information modeling, BIM, to improve carbon estimation. So what you can see here is in terms of carbon intensity. So this is looking at real life data, current emissions, if you have sensors or something similar in a room, or kind of a live kind of energy monitoring. You can see where energy is consumed in a specific space. Okay, so not many people like kind of looking at pictures and me just rambling on. So I'm going to present a short video of what we did. But essentially, this is what we did. We took 2D kind of drawings at an early stage. We transferred them into a 3D domain. We created a parametric script, which looks at the, you can do this in Rhino, Grasshopper kind of modeling tools. And we tried to create a script where you can actually do live real-time iterations of the size of maybe a window or a wall, and apply specific energy databases to that for both operational and embodied carbon. And at the end, we tried to do a demonstration, which we actually demonstrated to, I think we did it at Science Week, we did it to a few stakeholders, and we did it at the COP26 a couple of months ago, of looking at energy in a building in a 3D domain, and actually allowing you to kind of get the visual impact of this. Let's see if this link works. You can see this here.
We can't see it yet. Is there meant, is there meant to be any sound here?
No, I'm just talking
Okay.
here. So as you can see, what we're doing here is we've got window height, we're adjusting the size of it, we're adjusting the volume, and that really gives you an idea of the energy associated with it. And what we can input is a variety of weather data. We can use a materials library, and the outputs will be in terms of operational and embodied carbon. Who can use this? Technician, a stakeholder, a member of the public. And you can link this to a variety of internal systems. So you've got your kind of, pretty external render, but you would do this in a kind of 3D domain. So the idea is you'd go internally and you go into a space and you would get a live, which I'll show you in a few more slides, because it's very hard to show this thing actually in a virtual manner. It's really difficult to show it in a virtual manner. So let me just go back to my presentation. So you can, I'll show this in the next slides of how this works. So what we used was we broke down the geometry into parameters, building height and materials, and from that we can get a rough idea of operational embodied carbon. This is just to show you how complex this is. You have a lot of parameters, a lot of things to consider. So what these are is kind of small units that are linking different parts of the geometry. So a wall wouldn't be just concrete, it'll have different components. It could be plasterboard, it could be insulation, it could be kind of wall ties or something similar, but it shows you that there's a lot of complexity. Again, I hope I haven't sent everybody to sleep, but we tried to do both embodied and operational carbon and apply that to a specific area. Just another kind of slide of how this works. So as you can see, you can have your heating loads here, and all these ideas that I talked about, which people don't really relate to on a numerical level, which can be your cooling, your heating, your lighting, and this can feed back to a central area, which could be visualized. Again, you can see iteration. So yeah, that's playing, that's working, isn't it? Yeah, so what we have here is a kind of VR immersive reality, a prototype. So you're going in, for example, you would go into a space, or it doesn't have to be this was just the one I demonstrated. And you use, so this is based on HTC kind of VR tool. You're actually grabbing a wall, or you're grabbing maybe the hob here. This is something that people can relate to, because if you get your, I don't know, maybe a kitchen ordered in IKEA or somewhere, you might be interested to know what the amount of carbon is in it. So you've got specific indicators. See these little small balls there, you can actually go and grab them, and it'll give you a breakdown of energy or carbon associated with that particular activity. And the outside ones could be the total carbon for the house across the year. So a variety of different things that you can do. And again, this is just a prototype. So why is this important? Well, I mean, we use the kind of V-Rail engine, gaming engine. And I think really, if you are going to do anything that's going to be successful in terms of digitalization, you have to link it to some kind of virtual reality. The metaverse is getting bigger and bigger. There's all these things that are going on a variety of blockchains and so on. So while this might look like something very, very futuristic, it's actually something that you can might be achievable into the future. So I think combining a digital revolution with a kind of a low carbon kind of approach is really, really critical. So that was kind of just a quick overview. I'm sorry, I am in a kind of a rush today, but I'm happy to get in touch with anyone. We're trying to sort of collaborate on this field or something else. If anybody's looking at kind of knowledge transfer, joint funding applications, looking at sponsoring the university has a scheme where it co-sponsors a PhD, so somebody would be employed, or a knowledge transfer partnership where you get to 50% of the costs, or any commercialization ideas. I'm very happy to talk to anyone. For further information about the role of this work in terms of the COP26, there's a little video that I've left, and I'll send Terry kind of a PDF of this. Might not be able to do it today, but when I get back to the office. If anybody wants to contact me, there's my details. Also set up this specific website, which is looking at kind of, digital twinning and virtual reality, where we can actually visualize an asset as it is now and try and do it into the future. And again, this isn't, just for individual buildings. It could be applied across a lot of products. So the only thing I think that's stopping people from seeing this now is who's going to pay for this. So if a private client has deep pockets, it might not be like a school wanting to refurbish something. We have to think of a way of kind of costing this and looking at carbon as a currency into the future. Thank you.
That was great. Thanks for that, Zaid. I'll just there we go. So if you wouldn't mind showing your appreciation in the now usual manner with some jazz hands. Thanks for that, Zaid. I don't think there were any questions in the chat. Actually, Sean, you made a point there. Is that something you wanted to mention at all, or?
I was just passing on a link to Zaid, just about a European-based digital information modeling energy thing I worked on a couple of years back. I'll put you in touch with the firm in Manchester if it's any use to you.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah,
cool.
Please.
There's a lot of similarities there in what you're doing with your project, so they might be able to help.
Thanks, Sean. Anyone else want to ask a question, make a point, make a comment, or are you still trying to digest what?
Yes. Can I?
Please do, Martin. Yeah.
Yeah. People may well have seen in the news. There's a proposal close to where I live and work for a huge, great tower block aimed at more affluent people. As it says on the boards, it's upmarket or whatever, and it's a very difficult site. My thoughts are it could well be that the actual construction of this tower block at the mouth of the Ousburn where it meets the Tyne could be. It could well be that from an energy, a carbon point of view, it really isn't a good idea to do. So I just wondered how straightforward would it be to I mean, obviously local people haven't got the resources to pay for expensive because there's a lot of time and energy involved in putting something together. But how easy would it be for us to get something which could say, this proposal isn't environmentally sound because it's not nowhere near carbon neutral because it's a very difficult site to develop. If that is the case, of course we could find out that actually it is very energy efficient. But I just wonder. I think it could be this sort of study could be very useful when people are looking at planning applications.
Well, yeah, I mean, to answer that, there's 2 points. First of all, the developer has to be on board for us to kind of see the scheme and the construction method and the type of materials. I suppose if that, I mean, I think I know the one you're referring to, Malmo Quay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that was kind of a tower like they would do maybe in Norway, which could be built out of cross-laminated timber, it might be a different case, which wouldn't happen in the UK. So you need to kind of have an idea of the construction type and construction method. The other thing is, I think that planning authority should move towards this approach because the recent, I don't know if you've seen this visitor centre by Foster's in London that was refused planning permission, the Tulip. That was actually that was refused on grounds of embodied carbon because the left shaft was full of it was all concrete. So I don't think they employed anything as advanced as this, but I think that was because they went to appeal and it was rejected. But London Planning Authority and I suppose the organisers were much more kind of maybe detailed in their approach than would happen in the Northeast, I think. So it's definitely something worth considering in the future to kind of, because I think it will be the more our buildings become energy efficient, the more there'll be emphasis on the materials.
Yeah.
So that might be an approach might be to put pressure on the planning department to make sure they look at the embodied carbon aspects of the building, which might then affect the decision.
And very interesting that if something is rejected on the embodied carbon issue within a building, it has been rejected in London. If they could do it in London, we can certainly do it up here. And you know, it's key issues, really, isn't it? Anyway, thanks for the answer. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Anyone else quickly before we move on to? Oh, yeah, hi, Chris.
Hi, I was just wondering what the relationship between immersive tech and the carbon properties of furniture was. Just why them two linked together, and then who is the target user? Is it architects? Is it planning departments? Is it construction subcontractors?
I mean, I've talked about this tool to like a variety of people from large infrastructure firms to kind of small scale architects who are interested. unfortunately, I mean, I'm a big believer in circular economy. I mean, if you look at kind of, reusing things and redoing this, and I've done my own strategy for refurbishing my own house using that approach. I hope we can get to a level where we can scan something and then analyze the content if you're looking at it, or the other approach would be to do the stuff I've done, where it's a lot of like databases that are linked up to it. But if you're looking at furniture, I mean, I haven't looked at furniture, but I have been approached by someone who's looking at reusing plastic, for example, in terms of making furniture and what the embodied carbon would be of that. I mean, something like that would be different to the house, I presume, because that wouldn't have any operational aspect to it. So the clients could be an architect, it could be large scale kind of maybe urban development, where they're looking at this at a lot less large scale. So that's one thing currently is who would pay for a service like this if it's very, very important, but it's not considered to be important because there's carbon isn't heavily regulated. Yeah. I hope that answers. I hope that.
It does. I think it's important, but I just didn't see. I was just wondering why immersive tech was like the vehicle to understand the carbon properties, other than just like a graph to display. Okay,
the virtual reality aspect is when you look at it in that sense, you would have in the controls, you'd have the ability maybe to switch materials, so you would get a lower carbon depending on that material. That was the ultimate aim behind it. So if you wanted to switch the concrete, which could be heavily have a high cement content, and you want to replace it with a kind of low carbon version, you would get a drop in the graph.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. And again, thanks again, Zaid. I'll share your contact details and those various links and things when I send the information out on Monday. And I'm sure if anyone wants to have a chat with you about anything that you've shared, I'm sure you'd love to hear from them. So again, thanks for that. Now, anyone who's been to one of our immersive tech events in the past has probably heard from Sean, because he's the go-to guy, let's face it, for anything immersive. But the good thing is that every time we feature Sean, he's doing something different and he's applied it to something different, which is one of the things, I guess, about immersive tech. It's all about the applications, not so much about the tech. So I'm delighted to welcome Sean again to tell us about some stuff that he's doing in the. Well, I'll let him tell you. So Sean, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, sure. Cheers, Terry. Hi, everyone. So as Terry says, so I've worked in Immersive for an incredibly long time, like 14 years, which is unbelievable. Doesn't seem like that long ago. So anyway, I'm working now with a company called XR Therapeutics. I'll just try and share my screen and then get into the slides. Okay. Is that okay for everyone?
Yeah, that's going fine, Sean.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, so Sean Allen, hello. Chief Technology Officer at XR Therapeutics, basically the geek. Just a brief story about how I ended up joining. So as Terry and a few others already know, I have a company called Vector 76, which I set up in 2008. One of only 4 VR companies in the UK at that time. And over in the preceding years, I've worked on all sorts of projects using Immersive. But one particular project I was invited to get involved in was called Stage Worlds, which actually was an invite to go to China to talk about how the theatre world in Shanghai could leverage Immersive to be able to train actors at distance. So that was with some folk from Newcastle University and the guys from Software City and another fellow called Alex Cook from back then from Proto. So anyway, we went over there. I've known the team at Software City for quite some time. They more or less started when I started Vector 76. And one evening when we were having a couple of drinks, David Dunn, the CEO of Software City, asked me if I'd be interested in joining a spin out from Newcastle University. that was, you know, in the kind of planning stages. We're talking about 2-3 years ago now. So anyway, you know, I said, yeah, it sounds really interesting. Basically using XR technology, you know, virtual reality, augmented, all that stuff, but using it in a health environment, in a healthcare sector. So basically, I agreed, and then literally 2 years later, pretty much as we were coming out of the pandemic, I got a call to say, all right, are you ready to join us? We have investment, we're ready to go. And this was literally about this time last year. So we only really started the company in April, and have been, yeah, with XRT in the journey for the past 3 years, but really only in anger for about a year. Anyway, that's a bit of background. I'll crack on with this. So you know my name, you know what I do. So what do we do with XRT? In essence, we deliver therapeutic interventions using immersive technology. We specialize in treating people with autism that experience heightened anxiety, often triggered by a specific phobia or social situation. So these are things like we all get. My particular thing is moths. I can't stand them. And if there's one in a room, I actually can feel it on my ears before I see it, which is a bit weird. But yeah, different phobias that people, neurotypical people have got like us, or most of us, I can't presume otherwise. Yeah, they're much more heightened if you have a condition such as autism, and can really affect your life quite badly. So that's the area we specifically work in. So our interventions are based on over 10 years of published research in the pediatric neurodisability sort of area. This was worked on by Newcastle University and the local NHS, led by, it says there, world-renowned autism expert, Professor Jeremy Parr, who's also obviously part of our company now. So yeah, they did a load of work on immersive environments. When I'm talking about these, I'm talking about projected ones. I'm not talking about headsets, which is unusual for me, as Terry will attest to, but there's a reason for that. Quite a large proportion of the children and young people with autism kind of don't like having headsets on. Not all of them by any means, but a sizable proportion. And the research was built on, the research was carried out on projection-based systems, which is what we've stuck with as we rolled out XRT. As I'm going through these slides, I've just dropped in a few images to make it a little bit less boring. So obviously this is outside of the Northern Design Centre, should anyone be familiar with that. We use that as one of our locations. A little bit about the tech stuff. So during the research, it was found that traditional cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, when combined with a high fidelity visual environment, proved to be much more effective than traditional CBT. Ordinarily, in traditional CBT, a therapist will sit with a patient and kind of just talk through a scenario based on their particular anxiety or phobia, such as, or can you imagine if you were here, what would happen if this, say if it was something like someone had a dog phobia. Traditionally, they kind of sit there and go through, but a lot of it is dependent on the patient being able to, to visualize what the therapist is talking about. It turns out that's really quite difficult for folk with autism. They struggle with being able to visualize stuff that isn't in front of them. So basically, our combination of the traditional CBT techniques along with high fidelity visuals works a lot better. Basically, people can be treated in a matter of days rather than weeks. So moving on, there's a little dog there outside some of the paintings that Terry's involved with from the Great Exhibition of the North. Yeah, so on a practical level, what we do is we develop all of our what we call scenes or scenarios are developed in Unity. Obviously, with my background in games and VR for donkey's years, means I'm very at home with that. So we have a dev team who build these environments and these scenarios with things in such as, dogs, insects, people, and kind of social situations. The treatment's based on gradual exposure, driven by the therapist, and they can control absolutely every element of that scenario as it's, wow, I can't believe it, the typical Amazon call on the door there. I'm just going to ignore it. Yeah, so basically the therapist can control everything that's happening within the scene. So an example would be if someone's being treated for a dog phobia, then within the scene, we could start with like a really small little dog, like a Jack Russell or a poodle or something. That dog would be at a fair distance away from the patient within the scenario, like in a park or something like that. And then gradually over various 20-minute sessions during the day of treatment, the dog would get closer, the dog would be let off a lead. Maybe the dog, we could change it to a different breed, like Alsatian or a Labrador, something bigger and a little bit noisier. So all of those various elements that would normally, kind of really trigger a lot of anxiety in the patient can just be gradually notched up until such time that they, kind of reach the end. They could sit with the virtual dog pretty much right in front of them, and then hopefully use the same techniques after they finish their treatment in the real world with support of a companion app that we do as well. So they can kind of take that away with some of the techniques. This is basically our fast food outlet that we've built. The different phobias can, like I say, range from anything from wasps around a table to just going into somewhere like this when it's really busy, ordering food and all that sort of stuff. Even the balloons in an environment like this can trigger a lot of anxiety in people. So how it works is basically one of our therapists has an initial meeting with the patient, works on a treatment roadmap. This is then conveyed to myself and the dev team, and then we either modify one of the scenes we've got if we need anything specifically to do with that patient, or sometimes we build a pretty much a bespoke scene from scratch and get ready to treat that patient. An example of that at the minute is I think we're looking at some water-based phobias. So we're at that moment in time, the team are working on a water-based scenario. Another image from one of our scenes. The lady on the left is Penny Day, who's our product development manager, I guess. And she's showing a colleague of ours around a particular supermarket scene. Within these scenes, the user or the patient can interact with the avatars. So that's quite important as well, especially on the social aspect of going to places like this. Again, another image, just a nice pleasant meadow. Prior to a patient going into a treatment scene, we have a handful of different chill out scenes. So like a nice calm beach, a meadow scene and stuff like that. This one's actually got, just noted, this one's got the, we treat pigeon phobias as well, which is a bit of a thing. So equally within a scene like this or the park scene with pigeons, the therapist can control how many pigeons, are they flying around, are they walking around the floor, all that sort of thing. Just so you can kind of picture what our immersive studio looks like. It's basically, think of it like a mini IMAX cinema. It's very, very big, 180-degree wraparound, near enough from floor to ceiling, with a bunch of projectors in that are all blended together to give a much more, bigger and a wraparound visual. We've also got a sofa in there, so the patient sits in there with the therapist. We then relay the same scenes that the patient is looking at, particularly if it's a youngster. They're relayed to the parents or guardians next door or next door office, And so they can see and hear exactly the same thing that the patient's going through, and obviously pick up on the techniques that the therapist is advising to. So moving on. So this is Penny here with a young guy that's come in to check out the system. And she's basically altering some of the parameters I've just mentioned there via a Android tablet. So let's play this video for you. There's no sound on it, so you'll get an idea of our environment. Okay, so one or two you might have spotted Colin from Digital there, and I think he may be on this meeting as well. So he came down to help us test the system when we were doing that video. I
think it was more the spider that we were.
Right, the spider. Yeah.
You hit that one quite cleverly.
Yeah, we've actually we've got it crawling along a bath as well, but we thought that was heavy duty for the video. Okay, so this is the therapist using the application, which is linked to the scenarios as well. Obviously, altering parameters to do with the meadow. I've got another little video I'll play from Professor Jeremy Parr, and he'll just kind of describe a little bit about what we do.
After you've met the XRT therapist for the first time, you then go through treatment sessions. So that's 2 treatment sessions on one day with a break in between them. And then around a week or 2 weeks later, another 2 treatment sessions with a break in between those. After that, you can have a discussion with the therapist around how you're going to use the skills you have learned to manage your anxiety situation in real life, making a difference to your real life and allowing you to do the things you really want.
So I guess there'd be a point where I just kind of say what we're going to be doing next. So in addition to the work in the autism space, we're currently working on a range of neurotypical based treatments covering, as you might expect, post-COVID return to work anxieties, fear of flying, PTSD, and various other spaces. We also are definitely transferring some of our applications to established VR headsets, such as Quest 2, maybe Microsoft HoloLens, all that sort of thing, which is pretty exciting because we're looking at ways of maybe teleporting in therapists from pretty much anywhere in the world to where they need to be speaking to a patient, but via more of a mixed reality offering. That's pretty much it, unless anyone's got any questions.
That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Sean. I'll just turn the screen share off. And I mean, it's ironic that the thing that you can't do very well on these presentations is show the immersive nature of the environment. But I guess that's how it is. But first of all, thanks for that, Sean. That was great.
It's fine.
Anyone have any? Yes, and thanks for the spider bit. It was just, I think a few was jumped when we saw that. There was a question from Ola Schuler, who is here somewhere, if I can.
Yeah, I'm here, Terry. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah, and thanks, Sean. That was great. My question is, we made a start with an XR project last year, working with our local university here in Sheffield. And that gave us some inroads into making a start, but we couldn't get very far because of the budget involved. So I just wanted to ask, did you build your scenes, your XR scenes in-house? But if not, how much did it cost you? Or just trying to...
Yeah, a very simple answer. Yes, everything's built in-house. We have not a massive development team, but reasonable sized development team that build the scenes. And obviously, that's the background I come from. So that's my main task. Is
you never outsource your development team?
We could look at it. Yeah, we could look at it.
All right. Okay, I might get in touch with you. After the webinar. Thank you.
No,
I'll connect you afterwards, so we can chat a bit more. Anyone else like to ask a question or make a point or anything? Yeah, Julie.
Sorry, I'll take my hand down now. Did you not see the hands? Because I think Chris had one up as well.
I did, yeah. Well, apparently when you raise your hand now in Zoom, it knows that you have, or it did work for me, and actually puts the little digital hand in the corner, so it recognizes a hand, apparently.
All right, okay.
Which is really scary. Anyway, sorry.
Sean, fantastic, loved it, really great. I can see loads of applications for that. But for the neurotypical of us who still have various phobias and issues, how do you engage with yourselves? Is there a pricing structure to do it? And is it through GP, or how does it work?
Yeah, great question, because I didn't cover that in the presentation. I didn't want it to be too selly, do you know what I mean? But yeah, basically we kind of channel the same offering to the NHS and to private healthcare and to private individuals. People are more than welcome just to get in touch with us, via the website, usual channels, any of the social channels. Just get on a 20-minute kind of Zoom call or something, discuss what it is they may need. But the funding through the NHS, if it's via that route, which is you'd be basically referred by your GP, actually referred by your GP for NHS or private healthcare. We're on the books of all the kind of leading, market leaders in healthcare, Bupa and all the rest of them. And your treatment would be covered through that if you got a private healthcare set up. And then should people want to just come directly, they can as well. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people would engage with it, because a lot of people have phobias that they don't like to talk about. You talked about moths.
Yeah.
Mine's snakes. It's not something that you come across on a regular basis, but just saying the word and just seeing it on the screen can evoke a bad reaction. I think a lot of people have issues surrounding different things. So yeah, it's great to have something that you could work with, like yourselves. Thanks very much for the answer. Cheers.
Cheers, Julie. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. Anyone else before we move on? Oh, sorry, Chris. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It was Jack has a question.
Hi, Jack.
Hi. Thanks for your presentation. I was really interested in it actually, because I actually have autism. I was only just recently diagnosed. So it was really interesting for me. I don't know how to phrase it, so I've kind of wrote down some phrases. But so there's something that I don't like is being touched, like physically. I can't stand it. I was wondering, is this something that's kind of prescribed specifically for visual stimuli? Because a lot of people in drowning, as an example, might not like the feeling of water on them, not necessarily the visual of drowning. Or is that something that's prescribed specifically after like some criteria is met? Or
yeah, definitely. I mean, first things first is the initial chat with the therapist, obviously, and everything we do is all led from that. This isn't this isn't technology fixing, people's issues. This is primarily comes from the medical side of things, the research, how professional the therapists are at what they do. So initially, the chat with the therapist comes absolutely first. And then from that, they determine to what level we need to, maybe build things in a scene. What we never have in any of the scenes is anything which is like too extreme. Like an example would be, say, the dog phobia. We're not involved in kind of sensationalizing or heightening even further people's phobias. So you don't get like a pack of dogs coming at you or something like that. That would just, that wouldn't do anyone any good. And in the case of your particular anxiety, Jack, it'd be interesting, maybe further down the line, if we can look at, as a company, we'll look at things like what you call haptics, where you do feel stuff. Just off the top of my head, we could have some sort of sensor you'd maybe wear on your arm, and when the visuals married up to someone touching you, we could kind of, I would imagine, I'm not by any means prejudging a therapist, but I imagine like a gradual exposure to that, may help. But haptics is definitely an area we need to look at.
Yeah, it was interesting, because the only reason I mentioned it, because I know, like, from design, like product design, the more sensors you can stimulate, the more engaging the product is. I just kind of put two and two together there, but that's great.
That's a really good point about that, because in the world of immersive, when you're building whatever experience it is, whether it's to do with healthcare or anything else, the addition of other stimuli which humans are used to exponentially helps the amount of presence and the immersion. So things like touch, smell, all of that stuff. One or two of the people on the meeting might have come down to a thing we had called BA Fly. We put an immersive exhibition on at Proto a couple of years back, and it was basically a British Airways celebration of 100 years in flight, and we had effectively imagine like a smell synthesizer within that scenario, within that piece of work. So you've traveled through, you had a headset on as opposed to the screens, and you traveled through man's relationship with flight, starting from like a Tuscan meadow with a guy with your view looking at a red kite flying around, but you could smell the meadow. And then you went into Da Vinci Studio and you could smell all the spices and the fire he had on and stuff. And it really, really heightens the level of immersion. So spot on.
Thanks for that. I think, Chris, we had like a two-part question. I think Chris wants to...
I was just, if there's just enough time, I was just going to ask, because the product that we've designed and made is a projector, but it's just a basically, let's say, 2D projector in your sense. You use a few to build up the world.
Yeah.
Is it like can you use a different hardware to deliver the tech? Obviously, you probably use goggles and your environment, but like, it would be cool. I mean, I think we're going to do a little 2-minute pitch later, but it would be cool to see our application is in development countries. So we send low budget off-grid tech to developing parts of the world to give off-grid offline education. But it would be cool almost if, expose those type of people or marginalized communities to phobias.
Yeah, we'd be bang up for that, Chris, definitely. One of the main reasons we use Unity to develop our scenarios and the scenes and stuff is that we know we can go to any device from that. Mm-hmm. So obviously the headsets, projections, other screens. So yeah, it'd be great to chat to you about that. The other side of not the other side, but part of the business as well, as you might imagine, roadmap wise, we're looking to get these treatments out around the world, whether that be folk buying a complete system like what we have at the Northern Design Centre, which is obviously quite big and it has to be stationed somewhere with a lot of room, but equally putting the same scenarios through maybe some more portable and certainly cheaper device is definitely something we'd look at. Awesome. Look forward to your pitch thing in there.
Cheers, Sean.
Thanks, Chris. And Chris is going to be sharing a little bit more about that later, because there's been some amazing things happening over the last year or so. Right, we'll leave it there if that's okay. But Sean, I'm sure we'll be happy to get an email from you or a connection on LinkedIn or whatever, if there's something that you might want to have a chat with him about, or just want to know a bit more about what he's up to. So Sean, great to see you again, and thanks for that. Tom from Cerberus Nuclear, who's going to tell us, not just show us, some of the stuff they're doing. So Tom, over to you.
Thank you very much. Right, the next challenge is to share my screen. Can you see that?
We can, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wonderful! Mastered.
That was a doddle in comparison. So
yeah. So well, firstly, apologies for that. I was all ready to go, and I thought my microphone was working, and it went into the breakout room, and I couldn't say a thing. So apologies for that, but fantastic recovery there, Terry, and hopefully it'll be worth the wait. So yeah, my name's Tom Page. I work for a company called Cerberus Nuclear. I'm a director of Cerberus. I'm not really a VR expert by trade. I am a physicist, a nuclear physicist, and I'm going to talk to you a bit about Carter, which is our high hazard virtual reality training simulation tool. Carter incidentally stands for Criticality Augmented Reality Training Aid, but it'd be pretty apparent that this isn't an augmented reality tool. It's a virtual reality tool. But Carter, we like the acronym Carter, so it's stuck, and maybe one day we'll port it into augmented reality. So a bit about Cerberus, really. First of all, we are an SME technical support, technical consultancy that supports mainly the nuclear industry, but also sort of medical nuclear and other fields as well. We're quite sort of niche in what we do. We specialise in radiation shielding, criticality safety, and also nuclear characterisation, which is three very kind of niche areas in a very niche sector in some ways. But we mainly support safety cases for nuclear, so where they need sort of calculations or specialist support, that's where we can come in. But with the strong emphasis in the company on sort of innovation, really, and how can we do things better? How can we do things differently? And generally, a lot of what we do is we generate big data sets. We generate huge rafts and reams of numbers, which can quite often be displayed a lot more intuitively to get sort of messages across to people who maybe don't have the technical background. And virtual reality is certainly one of those tools that we use to allow us to sort of display things more effectively and intuitively. So what is Carter? So Carter is a training tool really for criticality safety. And criticality safety is effectively, well, it's very important when you're not in a nuclear reactor to make sure that you cannot have a critical system. So uranium and plutonium, which are materials that could potentially go critical, which we use in a reactor to generate electricity and power, they need to be handled safely. And if we don't handle them safely, then there's the potential to have a chain reaction inadvertently, and that can lead to a significant dose to anyone who's in the vicinity. So it's something we want to avoid. And it's something that we've had criticality accidents in the past, only one in the UK in the 1970s, but we've had them, globally since we started messing around with nuclear material. There's been about 40 or 50 criticality accidents where people have got significant doses. So it's very important. And it's sometimes quite difficult to get the concepts across to people that need to understand why criticality is important. There's a lot of different factors that go into making a system safe. So, how much material is there, what form the material is in, whether it's kind of interacting with other material that's in the vicinity. All these things are kind of sometimes non-intuitive, and sometimes for an operator, they're not that interested in it. And, if you can present, technical slides to people who sometimes they switch off. So there's definitely a call, certainly within the UK, for a more hands-on approach to the way that we train people in making sure that they're safe when they're operating with these kind of materials. And the critical health safety boils down to one number. That's the number called K effective. And if K effective is less than 1, then the system is safe. So it's absolutely analogous to the pandemic that we're kind of hopefully getting to the tail end of at the moment. All the discussion about our numbers is absolutely analogous to the K effective in a nuclear environment. So when the R number is less than 1, the pandemic's subsiding. When it's greater than 1, the pandemic's growing, and it will grow exponentially. So K effective is exactly the same. So we want to keep K effective below 1 at all times, unless we're in a reactor situation. So that is effectively what critical health safety boils down to. But there's a lot of physics that goes into producing that number, and a lot of training for users, stakeholders, is quite often done using PowerPoint. Trying to get across some quite complex physics, and quite often it falls short. And people walk away with the wrong impressions of how to keep the system safe. And there's definitely a shortfall there in how we teach critical health safety in the UK. So what we've done is we've developed a more hands-on approach. So it's more of a sort of a tool that you can kind of get stuck into and simulate an environment and see what happens to K effective when you change numbers, lots of different parameters. And how do we do that? So there's VR is obviously the sort of the front end, if you like. But there's a lot that goes into that in the background, because normally to understand the K effective, you need to go away, you need to do a lot of sums, and they take time, and you can't do those on the fly. So to have something that feeds a simulation in virtual reality, you need that number instantaneously. So we've developed a way of doing that using Monte Carlo modeling, which again has some parallels with the sort of pandemic. They model the pandemic using Monte Carlo techniques. We do exactly the same with nuclear physics applications, and we use those to calculate the K effective. We do that to cover all the different parameters that a user may select within the environment. And then we have like a machine learning based interface that sits over the top of all those results, and tells the virtual reality interface what the K effective is based on what parameters the user selected at the time. So that's essentially what Carter is. In terms of the goals, what we're trying to achieve, I'll kind of skip over these. It's not massively important here, but we're trying to sort of maximise the learning outcomes from the training and improve critical health safety awareness, and that's kind of based on where we see the shortfalls. And again, there's certainly a shortfall in how it's taught in the UK, just because of the complexity and how to get those complexities across. And we want this to hit the maximum number of stakeholders possible. A lot of training is aimed at a certain set of stakeholders. We want to develop this tool to hit, a maximum number, because a lot of people need to be aware of crit safety and the implications of crit safety, criticality safety. So it's not just people who are working with plutonium and uranium. It's people who are assessing plutonium and uranium. It's people who are project managers, who are people designers who are designing processes, facilities, even like the general public when they're trying to understand like some of the complexities associated with the nuclear industry and some of the challenges. So we're trying to hit maximum number of people that we can with this tool. And again, it's all about retaining skills and keeping skills within the industry. And it's a massive problem that we've got within the nuclear industry at the moment, is retaining the skills, to sort of the specialist skills to sort of process this material and keep it safe. Certainly as we look at like a new generation of nuclear reactors in the country. So where's the project up to? So we've had funding from a consortium of nuclear operators called ARC, and they're basically interested in those goals that I've just presented before. That's their objective. They put a pot of money aside and they fund projects that help them fulfill those objectives. So they recognise that Carter fitted that remit, and they've given us some money to develop the tool. And we've done it in 2 phases. So we started the project probably beginning of 2020. So we developed a concept. It's a really sort of really simple concept, and off the back of that we got this funding from ARC, and we proposed 2 phases of development. The first phase was to produce like a desktop-based application. So it didn't use VR. It had all the sort of more complex technical challenges addressed. So all the machine learning aspects were developed. The Monte Carlo analysis was all done to cover all the different aspects of the simulation. But instead of presenting it in a virtual reality environment, we wanted it in a desktop environment. And I think that was partly based on the fact that we were in the middle of the pandemic at the time. So there was kind of an uncertainty as to whether people would ever get together again and put on virtual headsets. And I think it was partly just that that remote working seemed to be the norm at the time, and to be able to sort of load something up on a desktop remotely seemed quite desirable. So we decided to go down that route. So we've finished that phase of development. We have a working desktop application, and we're in the process now of developing the virtual reality application. So this is effectively work in progress, but we're kind of at the back end of that development process at the moment, in that we have ported the desktop application into virtual reality using Unity, and we're kind of going through the process of polishing the environment. We've got a graphic designer on board now who's like working on textures and that kind of thing, doing all the stuff that I don't really understand because I'm a physicist. And yeah, we're making good progress. And at the end of next month, we're looking to roll out the VR application with the hardware to all of these sort of nuclear operators at the bottom of the screen that you see there. So some of the sort of major players in the nuclear industry will be using the software to train their personnel, which is quite exciting for us. And it's also been incorporated into a big course on criticality safety training in May of this year. So that should be good. Just to give you sort of a flavour for how it looks, really, we've simulated 2 scenarios using this Carter technique. The first one is quite a sort of complex glove box based scenario where you're sort of able to move cans of plutonium around in a glove box. You can do various measurements using the tools that are available to you in the glove box. So you can see there's a sort of a mass balance. So you can weigh the container. You can also put it in what's called an assay machine, which will tell you the mass of plutonium that's in there. And then based on the decisions that you make in terms of like where you place it within the glove box. So for example, there's some more plutonium in these cans on the right hand side, and the operator should make a decision as to whether they place it in those cans in amongst those cans or reject it and put it elsewhere. So that kind of decision making is the thing that can potentially lead to a bad decision, and that is where the learning comes from with Carter, because you can simulate that and you can see exactly what's happening to K effective. So this magic number, if it goes above 1, you can simulate the criticality, and the user is able to understand, well, what did I do wrong there? How can I make it safe? How can I do it safer? If I'm following my processes, my procedures, it's we can ensure safety. But it's when we go outside of that, or we receive some material that we shouldn't and we aren't aware of, and that's when we can potentially have a problem. So that's one scenario that we've simulated. The other one is more of like a sandbox where the user has two lumps of material, And in the desktop-based application, you can use the cursor to kind of move the material around and see how it behaves and change all sorts of parameters associated with it, like the mass, the concentration, the composition, all these kind of things that contribute to that number. And just see what happens and just play with it and just see how all these things kind of interlink and can influence that magic number again. So it really is just a sandbox, and it just allows the user to see all these different parameters. They're all intertwined and they're all keeping us safe, so it just underlines that complexity. So this video here shows the concept. So this is the VR concept that we developed. So this is actually in virtual reality, and this allows the user to kind of pick up 2 cans of fissile material, 2 cans of plutonium, and move them around. And due to the interaction between them, eventually you can have a criticality. And that blue flash is kind of is something that does have a physical effect that happens when a criticality occurs. So you can see all this within the simulation. So now the user can change some of the parameters. So this board allows them to like change the mass and change the concentration and change all these things and see that magic number and how it changes. So it's a really sort of powerful way of presenting to the user there's some of the physics and how that physics affects safety. So it's sort of it's immediate and it's really apparent, and I think it's quite a powerful way of getting the message across. So in terms of like where we're going next, we're doing some work on sort of real-time object tracking. So that's something that we can kind of incorporate in the future, and then possibly leading on to sort of augmented reality type applications where you can actually have a can of material or kind of like dummy material and move things around in real life and see how that affects things in augmented reality. Something else we're looking at is sort of accident response. So if there ever was to be a sort of criticality accident, how it's very important for anyone in the vicinity to respond in the right way when an accident occurs. And training using virtual reality is something that we're potentially looking at. We're looking at incorporating more realism into the scenarios. As I said before, we're working with a graphic designer who's looking at like textures, and because we recognize that going from like a desktop application to something that's VR, to the way you improve immersion is by making it more realistic. And people who work in nuclear environments are very used to seeing certain things in certain places, and I think if we haven't got that bit right, then it just kind of jars a little bit with them. So we're kind of working on that kind of immersion and making things more realistic, and potentially looking at sort of cooperative experiences as well. So having multiple people in the same environment able to sort of interact, I think will be quite powerful as well. And it potentially has applications in other nuclear hazards. So, as I say, critical safety is quite niche. It's obviously important, but it is quite a niche area. But there's definitely other high hazard scenarios that we could look to simulate. So, like fire safety, potentially, other sort of radiological safety issues, sort of anywhere where you can't really have a sort of hands-on training scenario. Virtual reality is certainly something that's a really useful alternative. So that's, I guess, is really all I wanted to say. So thank you for listening. I hope it's been of interest. And again, apologies for the sound issues earlier on. But any questions at all?
That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Tom. I'll just put us back into so we can all share show our appreciation, because it does get a bit noisy when we all clap. So yes, does anyone have any questions for Tom? Any comments or suggestions? You've dazzled them with physics. That's what it is.
Either that or bored them all to tears.
And as a former physicist, I can understand that. Although I probably couldn't spell it now. Right, yeah. Okay. Right. Well, we'll leave it there. But I mean, I'll share Tom's contact details on Monday when I send the email with all the information out. So if you do, once you've recovered and you've got your head around all this stuff, if you've got anything you'd like to know or suggest, or if you'd like to connect with Tom, I'm sure he'd be happy to do that. And Tom, it's been great to see you. Thanks for joining us and for persevering with the whatever it was that didn't work originally.
God knows, we'll never know. But thank you for allowing me to present. Appreciate
Not
it.
at all.
Cheers.
Pleasure. Thank you. Right. Thanks for that. So a big thank you to our three speakers who've shared some amazing things with us this morning. We're now going to go back to Chris in the hope that he's resolved the issues that he had. We've all got issues today.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
So you were just about to share your screen. Yeah.
Yes. So thanks again, as I was just mentioning earlier, Terry, for the opportunity to just speak about what we're doing. Really, it's been fantastic help so far. So me and Jack currently make up the global teacher team, aside from a board of trustees and directors, but we are basically a charity, a non-profit that's been going for almost 3 years, and which seems like a crazy long time, but a lot of product development and having conversations with this grand aim of making digital education available for all, no matter where you are in the world. I started to research this education in the world kind of topic as a dissertation at university in Manchester, and I found 15% of the world's adults are illiterate. 31% of the population has no 3G coverage, and over 1 billion people have no electricity. So with all of these barriers to digital education, to make it even worse, in Cameroon, the reality of the situation is one textbook is shared between 12 children, so there's no content either. So my challenge as a design engineer at university was, how do I design a product or system or solution to that problem? And this is now Pod. So I'd like to introduce you all to Pod. And Pod is essentially the world's first 3D printed solar power projector that makes digital education available offline, off-grid, anywhere in the world. And this is Lumi, who is basically the software platform that when you turn Pod on, which we have here, I don't know if you can see in the corner of your screen, but we actually design and 3D print these in-house. So simply when you turn the projector on, which you just slide the lens cover and it will turn on automatically, you'll be presented with our fantastic global teacher platform where all of the offline content is available, and the teachers simply use this wireless infrared remote to navigate through and select the documents. And we're quite proud of the fact that we're made in Sunderland. We just did a launch event in the Beam in January, the end of January. We did one in London in December, again, thanks to an introduction from Terry. But really, it was about the Northeast. And as I said, we're quite proud of the fact that we're made in Sunderland, because you often say made in China and things like that. But I think made in Sunderland's quite a funny kind of paradox or alternative viewpoint. And as I said, we 3D print them. We use these Prusa machines, which are fantastic, and we do it for a much lower cost than we originally thought. So yeah, we're kind of challenging industry, I suppose. And Terry messaged earlier in the week and said, how about we get together and the Design Network North community all chip in and donate a pod, essentially. So it's currently £500 to donate a pod. So that means there's 3 parts to the whole kit. So there's the projector, there's a battery bank, and there's a solar panel. And that kit is basically £500 to sponsor, and it goes to a classroom in the developing world to give them offline, off-grid education. And so we kind of did some cost analysis on this as well. So currently in the developing world, there's the solution is tablets, 1 tablet per child, right? So if we do a bit of math on that, and there's often around 80 kids in a class, in an oversized class in Tanzania. So if we needed to get all of those children a tablet, so let's say a tablet very generously costs £60. We're being quite kind with that estimation, right? that's £4,800 to educate a class. With the same class, you can educate it with £500 via pod, which is £6.25 to educate a child. So you can get, if you would like to get in at the £6.25 level, you know, to educate a child, or the £62.50 level to educate 10 children, or and all of those kind of little contributions. Hopefully we could donate one pod and then kind of tip our hats to Design Network North when we put it into a classroom, and yeah, do a bit of marketing around that. That would be cool. And that's it, I suppose. Yeah. So
that's brilliant. Thanks for that, Chris. I'll just yeah. So I mean, when I was chatting to Chris about this, and when I saw the launch and everything, I thought, well, you know, a lot of people in this room and outside of this room have helped with this and contribute to this, and I think it would be great if we could carry on contributing. So I haven't quite worked out how this was going to work, but I'd love to see a Design Network North pod out there somewhere teaching loads of kids. So I think this is a call out to you guys. I'm going to put a wider call out as well. If you want to help to make that happen, you know, and if you want to donate something to making that happen, we'll kind of coordinate all of it, and hopefully we'll get more than one. We might get 2, 3, 4, who knows? But we'll let everyone know about that over next week. But the main thing is that well done to you and your team, Chris. It's amazing what you've done, and we're delighted to have played a little part in that, and we're looking forward to seeing what comes next. So, and I guess what comes next is getting it out there. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. We're planning to go to Kenya around April time. So we've got the launch out the way. We raised investment at the end of last year, which is going to kind of allow the project to run for 12, 18 months. So that's an awesome kind of, I don't know, just it gives us life. You know what I mean? After 3 years of slaving away, I had an idea, product development and things like that, and believing in this dream, it's now feeling much more like a reality. So this year is going to be fantastic, I think. And we're doing a big black tie event after the trip to Kenya with all that marketing footage, as you can imagine, then launching a crowdfund, and then hopefully scale up manufacture and start having conversations with UNICEF for, you know, they want 2,000 projectors for the off-grid schools around the world. And yeah, I think that's the intention for this year.
Brilliant. And if anyone, I'll share your details next week. But if anyone wants to get in touch with Chris and maybe offer support in some other ways, he'd love to hear from you. And the other thing was, in terms of the solar panel, I don't know if you know the guys at Power Roll who do the flexible solar panels.
I know I saw on Twitter that they're closer to. I had a conversation with them a while back, but they were still develoking their technology, and they were saying
it's much closer now. Yeah. And they're working with partners in China and a few other places, so it would be certainly worth reconnecting with them. And I can introduce you again if you've lost the connection. But brilliant. Thanks for that, Chris. And we're looking forward to seeing what happens next. Right, so I'm now just going to quickly mention a couple of things that are coming up that might be of interest. So that's what I said at the beginning. That's what we're about, and hopefully today has helped to make some of that happen for you in the realm of immersive tech, and you've got a better understanding of how it might enable some of the things that you're hoping to do. So in terms of Design Network North, that's what we're all about. It's about supporting and growing the network, which we've been doing for the last, as I said, 13 years or so. It's about encouraging collaboration, and we've seen some of that today. And hopefully you'll have met someone in your breakout room who you might want to work with in some way. It's about assisting companies as well and organizations. So if you need some help with something, or you need to find someone who can help you with something, do ask. I got a call on email just the other day. Someone was looking for someone who could do something, and we found them some contacts there. So, do feel free, if you're stuck with something, just to get in touch. It's about sharing knowledge as well through events like this and other things that we do. And it's about raising the profile of the importance of design, but also helping you to raise your profile and raising the profile of the North as being an amazing place. So anything we can do to help with those things, that's what we're about. One of the ways that we do that is through these Rise Design events. So that's where you've been this morning, applications of immersive tech. The next one is on the 11th of March, and that's around opportunities in space. And if you look on the right-hand side, that will be at Net Park. And yeah, exactly. I can't believe it's been 2 years. It's been a rough 2 years in lots of ways. And one tiny way is that we have been able to get together every month. So I'm really looking forward to being able to do that. So, but we'll still be doing the online aspect as well. So it'll be hybrid, as everything will be, I think, going forward. So in terms of signing up for the event, there'll be a live, an in-person ticket and a virtual ticket. So you can either join us there in person, or you can join us on Zoom. And I will work very hard to make sure that both of those things are just as good as each other. So if you're not able to be there in person for whatever reason, don't feel that it's second best, because it really won't be. And then in April, we'll be looking at the electric revolution. So around sort of the whole batteries thing and electric drives. I'm hoping to get someone from British Volt to come and tell us about some of the things that they're doing. And then going slightly further forward in May, we're going to be looking at cyber safety and the sort of the design aspects of that. So how to design things to make sure that they will be safe from that point of view, as well as in other respects. And then in June, we'll be focusing on the older consumer. We're all moving into that bracket at the same rate, so it applies to everyone. And what are the design related aspects of that? So a lot coming up there. But also beyond that, if you've got suggestions for things that we should cover, or if you've got a great story to tell, then get in touch, and we can, I'm sure, include that on the lineup. There's information about all those things on the website, so that's the page for signing up to today's event. Where are we? But then all of these are the recordings of the live streams from previous Horizon Designs. So if there's something there of interest, have a look and kind of relive that Friday morning. That's what we've put in there for. There's other things on the website as well, though. So there's a news page and there's various other things. So do please pay a visit if you haven't been there before. designnetworknorth.org. In terms of our kind of sponsors, Supply Chain Northeast program is something that's being delivered by RTC North. That's giving assistance to companies in the north, also in the northeast area, around anything to do with supply chains, getting into new supply chains, getting in new markets, managing your supply chain more effectively. So again, and they've got a lot of events and workshops and things coming up, of which I'll send details out early next week. And then also the Innovate UK Edge program, which me and about 30 other people are delivering on across the north. It's support for businesses in terms of anything relating to innovation, whether that's developing new products, introducing new processes. And again, it's something that's available, fully funded to eligible businesses. So if you're doing something new and you want some help with it, then you can get involved in that program. Then there's also, oh sorry, I've skipped one. So a couple of things that are coming up. So John from Mintronics has got another one of his kind of seminars and workshops all on 3D scanning and 3D printing. I mean, we've been talking about digital tech today, but often those things do need to be turned into real products. So he's got a demonstration day on the 4th of March. I think it's in Darlington. No, it's in Boston Spa, which is a little bit further south. But if you're interested in anything to do with that, get yourself along to that. John's a great guy, can share some really interesting tech and software. The Design Council are doing they want to know what the design kind of world and economy means. And the best way to do that is to ask people. So they've got a big survey that they've asked us to push for anyone who's working in the design area. So I'll send that out to you early next week, and they'd love your responses. And it does help because they've got a big lobbying role with government. So I think helping them to get a better understanding of what the design world looks like and what the needs are would be a good thing. So, I'd encourage you to contribute to that if you can. The Sensors in Water Interest Group, which do exactly what it says on the tin, they do some really interesting events all around sensors and their application in the water sector. So I said I'd promote a couple of them. So there's a few coming up over the next few weeks. Again, I'll send you some more information on that when I.
Terry.
So
can I just ask about that? Actually, the one that you just talking about, sensors in water. Yeah.
Yeah, please do, Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, just if you can ping those details across, actually, because we'd be really interested in that from Northumbria Water's perspective.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Not to worry. We'll do that. Another program that RTC North run is the Scale Up program. So that's aimed at companies that have, you know, got a big vision and big plans, and they're really wanting to hit the big time. So they've got a series of, it's kind of an online conference spread over a week. So they've got various people coming along, people from senior positions in ASDA and EasyJet and other organizations, to help you to look at how you can scale your business and really grow. So that would be a good one to get involved in. There's another thing that we're involved in are these global business innovation programs. So it's basically kind of trade missions to different countries who are looking for technology and innovation in different fields. So there's one coming up around sustainable plastics in South Africa. So if you are wanting to connect with businesses or end users in South Africa around that area, there's quite a lot of funding that will cover a lot of the travel and various aspects of, I think it's a 4-day visit to various businesses and events in South Africa. So if that's the thing that you do and that might be of interest, that might be worth getting involved in. And also Lego have just launched a massive, what they've called Build a World of Play challenge. It's $140 million pot or fund for anything innovative in the area of basically improving the lives of children. So it's not just around play, it's around education, it's around healthcare. I think they've just launched it. So if that's something that is of interest, get involved. If you want some help with that, or you want to connect with other people, let me know, and I'll see if I can help with that. And I think that might be it. Is that the end? I think that's the end. So a huge thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you for bearing with us as we navigated our way through the various challenges that we had. But hey, that's what makes life worth living, isn't it? So it's been great to see you. And I hope you have a fabulous weekend. I hope you have a fabulous the rest of the month. And we'll see you hopefully in March, and actually in person. And we all know what the most important element of that is: Bill's bacon sandwiches. So I'll be on the phone to him as soon as we finished, telling him to get his order in. So I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you. But don't go. You don't have to leave now. Stick around if you'd like for a chat.
Thanks, Terry. That was really good.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Cheers, Terry.
Cheers, Terry.
Good to see you.
Sean, I've got. Are you still there, Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had you on LinkedIn. Thank you. Well.